Welcome to Real Talk, a place where we have real conversations about faith, doubt, and everything in between. I'm your host, Reverend Thea Curry-Fuson, and this is brought to you by First United Methodist Church of Pearland, a place where we know that we can disagree and still be in relationship. Today, I'm so grateful to have two guests with me today to talk about the uncomfortable situation of disagreeing and yet still remaining friends. And so I just want to start by asking our guests to introduce yourselves and maybe share a memory of your friendship.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Paul Wendt, married to my wife, Stacy. We've been members of FUMC Pearland all the way back to 2003, shortly after we moved to Pearland in 2001. Flooded out of Tropical Storm Allison while living in Houston. But it ended up being a real blessing. We had friends and neighbors who invited us to the church back there in the summer of 2003, and that ties into my first interactions with James, in that we visited what was the celebration service, or was also I think called contemporary, or called the 940 service even way back at that time, and it was still in the sanctuary because the FLC had not quite been finished, and we were just blown away. I grew up Baptist, and it was a wonderful upbringing, but this was just on a different level. The energy in that room just absolutely blew us away, and James was a key part of that. And then really over these last 20 years, I've had the opportunity to work with him on trustees. He may not remember this too much, but in 2010 we had a big youth project. We had some funding come in.
He's stealing my thunder. He's stealing a little bit of my thunder. I'm just saying.
I'll just say I'll be blunt. He really saved me there. I started on that project, and frankly, at the time, I'd gotten in over my head, and some things were happening at work, and he just stepped in and just really made that project go. I'm forever grateful. And then even more recently, we were in the same Sunday school class together and grown closer together, and we've been very intentional about, we need to be meeting up regularly and going to lunch monthly whenever we can. We don't nail that every time, but it's out there, and we try to make that work as much as possible. It's just one of the highlights.
Yeah, my name is James Gilbert. I've been a member of FUMC Pearland since about 1980, like forever ago, and seen quite a few changes. I have served on several committees there and sang in the choir, in the traditional choir, for a while before I got into the contemporary singing that Paul referred to just a second ago. I met Paul, and I said that a while ago, that he stole some of my thunder back when I was trustee chair, one of my trustee chair life sentences, details. Anyway, he and his wife were gracious enough to fund kind of a pretty good sized remodel project on the youth building. And back when that happened, it was a really, really nice big gift for us to do that. It wasn't going to happen otherwise. So that's how I met him. I remember him and Stacy come to celebration service for a long time. And like you mentioned a while ago, we're in the same Sunday school class. Actually, he pretty much leads it. Paul is a wonderful guy. He's a true friend, and he spoke of our lunches that we are doing. Right now, we're 0 for 1 in 2025 because we something come up last week and I couldn't go, and I don't even think we did December either way. So we might be 0 for 2 for the last quarter. So, but it's good. We have a good time when we meet, and it's a great visit.
Yeah. So what made you two be willing to come on a podcast today and talk about disagreement, especially amongst friends?
Well, I can start with that one because you ask, and it's hard for me to say no to you. I think I have a time or two, but it's not often. I don't know how well I'll be in this, but I'm gonna get through it. But I don't mind doing that if I can share something. I'd be glad to.
Yeah, you asked. Thank you. I've enjoyed the Real Talk podcast that I watched. I've mainly not watched them all, but the ones I have watched, I've really enjoyed and supportive of it and want to contribute where I can. I can be one to talk, but getting in front of a microphone is not so much something I seek out. So this is a little bit of a stretch for me. But I remember, a friend in the same Sunday school class a couple years ago, we were just talking about New Year's resolutions, and he threw out, he's like, my goal for this year is to say yes to as many things as possible. And that always stuck with me. So when you call, I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this, even if it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. The subject matter is intriguing. We're talking about disagreement and friendships and all that kind of has a little bit of a negative connotation to it. But to me, I see that there can be, through some challenges, lots of opportunity to grow relationships closer, to learn, to build respect when we have conversations. And, everybody always talks, I guess we're in the backdrop of a very polarized society, right? We just had elections, and it's like country split we see as evidence of that. But, beyond that, I also see, I think, the vast majority of people, I don't know what the number is, 70, 80+%, are people just out there trying to just plow through, do the best they can in this life, do the best for their family, provide for their family, go to school, raise their kids in a good way. And, that doesn't show up in any poll or anything. Anytime you ask people questions, you usually got to make a binary choice, and, life's just not binary like that. So I think there's a lot of common ground there. And a lot of the long-term friendships I've had were basically, neighbors and friends who all had kids the same age, and we were all kind of wanted the same thing. And we started blossoming a lot of friendships that way. So there's plenty of room to to build friendships, and gives you a good baseline to work through any issues that do come up.
Yeah. Well, for me, I wanted to have this topic because, again, we do live in what seems like very polarizing time. I think all of the media will suggest you're either on the left or the right. You either feel this way or that way. And there's also this assumption that you can't be in relationship or connection, and that people have to be all or nothing as far as you agree with them completely or you want nothing to do with them. And again, as a pastor and just as a human being, I know that's not reality. And it definitely wasn't our reality before social media told us that it was. But then more so when it comes to faith, it seems like that seems to be a really hard line people want to draw. Don't talk about politics or religion around your family. Don't talk about it with people you might disagree. And I think that we're missing out. We're missing on an opportunity to learn more, to listen, and to grow. And so I thought it would be great if we can let's just confront that reality together. What do you think about disagreeing is so uncomfortable? Like, why are people maybe at least presenting as if they're afraid to be in connection with those they disagree?
I've gotten better. It's not because I've matured. I haven't matured. I've just gotten older. But I am very non-confrontational. So it's historically been really uncomfortable for me to disagree. A lot of times I'll agree with somebody even if I don't, just to keep it. I don't want to go there, and I still am that way to a certain extent. But I've gotten better at it, and I think disagreement. If more people would admit it, I think they're all uncomfortable with that. Whether it be politics or faith or whatever. And you mentioned a while ago about, there's such a split. It's either all one way or the other. I keep asking people, what happened to the big middle? What happened to the middle? It seems to be gone. And I think, not to ever compare faith to politics, but I'm seeing some of that one side or the other in faith too. In religion, so to speak, or what have you. So it's just, it's a little bit, it bothers me. I can't fix it. I mean, we as individuals, we're going to have to fix it on our own. I mean, I bet there's no book. Well, there probably is a book on there. There's a book on everything, but we don't have to have a book for everything. You just have to kind of sit back and good grief, just do the right thing.
Yeah.
And say the right stuff.
Yeah. What do you think? Why is it so uncomfortable when people disagree?
Well, I mean, I think to James's point there, we all have a comfort zone. Anytime you step out of a comfort zone, it's like, certainly when matters of faith or politics, anything that might be polarizing, emotions can come out. And once the emotions come out, things can spiral out of control quickly. Somebody might end up saying something they don't want to say, and if you had a good friendship, it could be, really damaging. Or if you're just trying to start one, maybe not the best way to start. So, it can happen certainly if somebody has a strong
and it probably
faith.
happens more times than not. I think. I mean, it's people. I mean, people have the emotions, and it's just going to come out.
That's right. That's
That
exactly
makes,
right.
and that even makes it more uncomfortable or what have you. So,
Yeah. Another thing I've learned is, just some things are more personal to some people than others. There may be just, pick an issue out there that may not be huge on your radar screen and you make a comment about it. It might be really major to the other person. You just didn't know out of ignorance and, you've offended them or something. It's like, whoa, I didn't even intend to do that. So there's the challenges of not knowing everybody's experiences and backgrounds to say, hey, that you touched on something even though you didn't intend to. And then again, it turned into emotions. And, for just my own story, I mean, when I started off in career, whatever, I mean, I've always felt like I had a good heart for God since I accepted Christ, but I had a big ego. I had an ego on the job. Absolutely. Especially in the technical arena. And it took me, a long time to, bottle that back up, but I would escalate too many things at the time, just, youthful exuberance, if you will. That's something I had to really work on. So, does everybody still have some little point of ego in their past that might pop up? Yeah, that can be another reason. So, depends where we are on that spectrum too.
Yeah, that like ridiculous need to win, right? Ridiculous need to be right. And again, how far we'll go even with those we love, instead of being like, man, I love you enough that we can disagree on this. Like it's not really going to change the landscape, and I can let you be wrong. I could even let you think that I'm wrong, but we have that ego and that need to be right and to feel some maybe vindicated or that we've won, just that kind of affirmation versus what can happen when we instead just hold on to the relationship and say, this is so much more important. I can see this is bothering you. I can see you're getting upset. I love you too much to let this come between us,
Mm-hmm.
What are some places that in the realm of Christianity, like what are those places that you have disagreed with people, or just we are kind of like the well-known places where some Christians disagree? And have you had any experiences dealing with people regarding those?
go ahead, Paul.
Oh, how long do we have for this podcast?
Just give me let's just start with one story.
I'm joking there, but no, there's a lot of room for disagreement, and I've always been kind of curious about that too. Is like, we go back to Jesus' message and Paul's message. There's a lot there, but you could argue, they can be pretty straightforward. But I was researching a topic for a Sunday school class about a year ago, and just for grins, how many Christian denominations do you think are out there today?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
700.
Yeah, so I was proud. There's actually a company called Center for the Study of Global Christianity. 45,000 is what they think is out there today. So even if they try to tabulate, even if it's not really that high, it's in that order of magnitude. It's huge out there. You're like, what is it that, from the messages that we have in these scriptures, do we get to that? And certainly, I guess it comes down a lot of times to some theological issues here. There's some just how we put things into practice. But some perspective that has helped me. It doesn't make it any easier. Is I've had a personal interest as part of my spiritual development to kind of really study the early few centuries of Christianity, from like basically the ascension of Christ up to 380 AD, in particular when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman
I
Empire.
told you about him about that. He loves Christianity history,
And it is absolutely just a crazy. You would think for just a few hundred years for religion from arguably 20 poor, scared followers after what happened with Jesus and a converted Pharisee. It's like, how does that get to a point where you've taken over basically the largest empire in the world, effectively in just 350 years? That always intrigued me. And there's certainly a divine aspect there's a divine aspect to that and people's efforts and just basic population multiplication. But I've always thought, I was like, well, it must have been just one harmonious engine, And, one look at Paul's letters to the churches and then really see what happened. I mean, right out the gate, it's like, okay, we had, they call Jewish Christians, ones that believe you had to convert to Judaism to be a Christian. Well, that wasn't going to go over so well with Gentiles. And I'm just naming a few here. Marcionites who believe, no, it's not about the law. It's about Paul's teaching, and it's about what he believed. And oh, by the way, I think there's two gods. There's the one God of the Old Testament and a new God of the New Testament. The Gnosticism, which had many, many denominations underneath it, was like, no, the only way you can know God is to really study the Scripture and really study Jesus' teachings. And so you have stuff all over the map and just councils upon councils and edicts. So just for perspective, it's like this has been, disagreements have been out there since basically the dawn of Christianity for 2,000 years. Things that are more common now. I mean, just basic practices, communion, for instance. I mean, most churches I know do take communion, but, one might believe you need to be a member before you can take communion. One, open table, Methodism, that I prefer. Others, no, you got to be a member, and we think we're, the LMS become the body of Christ even. It's a good example. It's like we're all doing this differently, but the core piece of communion, which is such an important part of our faith, still unites us. So I think the opportunity there is, just keep the focus on Jesus, and we can talk about that theology more in a little bit also, but keep that focus there and work from there.
Yeah. What are some big things you've encountered, James, with other Christians where you've noticed disagreements?
Oh, I guess the most recent thing with me was with our denomination that went through the disaffiliation, and it was a real struggle for me, and I still deal with that every day, and I can't seem to get past it. But friends of mine that disaffiliated, I'm still friends with them, and we just, I think, an unwritten rule, we just kind of don't talk about it. And that's okay with me. It's just like I've got really good friends that are in all denominations. The Kairos prison ministry that I'm involved with, our group of volunteers, they're all over the map. They're all over the map. And we had a group of United Methodists in there, and about half of them disaffiliated. And the common good is we're just trying to do Jesus's work and trying to do what we can do, especially in the prison where we go. There's the prison unit that I go to. It's a faith-based prison, which is really kind of awesome. But there's still inmates that come there that don't know Jesus, and we do not try to shove Jesus down their throat, but we are going to tell them that we're Jesus followers, and and just try to share with them just what they've done in our life. But it's I'm okay with people believing different ways. They have that ability to do that, and I don't try to change them, and they don't try to change me, and we can still get along.
Yeah.
It gets uncomfortable, I think, when you start talking about it, and everybody thinks theirs is the best or whatever, and it's just best, I think, just keep it under the table. Yeah.
Something I really appreciate about the United Methodist Church is that we don't have to agree.
Yeah.
There's not
Yeah.
written down or required, either literally or even kind of suggested. And that was the part that was really hard for me with throughout the disaffiliation and times of discernment, because it was almost as like, well, now we have to decide that if we don't agree, we have to divide. And it was just kind of puzzling to me as a adult convert. I was like, that's why I'm here, is because we don't have to agree.
Right. No.
And something I use just a lot, especially with just hiring church staff, if they're not coming from within our community, I always ask, two big questions, and point out two things that where United Methodist theology differs. And I always tell them, you don't have to agree, but you have to be okay that we think this way and that we allow this. So one is female pastoral authority. We ordain women. They are not forced to work, under a male supervisor. Female pastors can lead churches and lead groups and preach and teach men, and there's no, difference between their authorities. I said, so that happens here. And as the female pastor interviewing you, you need to be okay with that. Again, you don't have to agree with me. You can think we are outright against the Bible. That's okay. But you have to be willing to accept my authority. Second is infant baptisms. So again, a place where some denominations say, nope, you have to wait and let that child make the decision for themselves, which United Methodists do. We don't force you to baptize your baby. We don't suggest that something's wrong with you or your baby if they're not baptized. But we do also take that moment to celebrate that the family is making that decision to claim that baby for Christ and to lead that child into his or her own understanding of faith. And again, I say, you don't have to think this is okay. You don't have to baptize your babies. But you have to be okay that we do.
Yeah.
And if you're going to accept a job, for instance, in family ministry, I need you to be okay with other families doing that and don't direct them otherwise. That kind of really empowering the family. And it's been helpful. It's been interesting how many people have said they're okay with that. And then they're not.
And then they're not.
And I think for me, those are kind of some simple things. Like, we're not questioning if the communion is real or not. We're not questioning these other kind of big things, or sometimes baptism has to be immersion. Like, we're not even getting into those big things. Just kind of simply, hey, we're going to baptize some babies and you might have a female pastor. Can you be okay with that? And how sometimes people can't, but again, like you said, Paul, too, of like, oh, well, what can we find that commonality? That reminder that we don't have to agree. We just have to be okay that we might not. And actually that we probably don't. Not on everything.
Gosh, aren't we all different anyway? I mean, we're just different. We may have a lot of things in common, but we are all different. And the way that this gooey matter between our ears, ticks, it's just, we're different. We can get along, and we need to work harder at that. I guarantee you we need to work harder at that. But it's just accept the fact that we're different, and the folks that are trying to change folks to their way, that's just never going to work. It's never going to work long standing. So,
have there been friendships with those you disagree with that have maybe helped you grasp that and be able to accept that? How have those friendships, changed you and maybe opened your eyes or closed them tighter?
Yeah, I don't think that has happened with me. I'm pretty open for people to go down the road that they think they should go down, whether it's faith or politics or job or personal relationships or whatever. I don't get hung up on that. I'm okay with that. Yeah. I can lay my head down at night and sleep good, knowing that I'm not trying to change anybody. They're not trying to change. If somebody wants to try to change me, we're probably going to, kind of go part ways. I'm not a fighter. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to argue. I don't argue well. I usually lose those. But yeah, I don't. That doesn't bother me. Just to have different. I still love them.
Yeah.
I had some strong influences that made a huge difference back when we did join the church. Like I said, I grew up Baptist. I accepted Christ in my heart when I was 15 years old in a Baptist church, full immersion. Fell away from, active church participation and such, through college and such like that. And even after Stacy and I got married, it's like we were always one of those things, yeah, we're going to get to it. But, like I said, everything just really came together there. We had our two girls, two daughters, and found the church home there in 2003. But, I can tell you, even though Jesus was in my heart and believe that, I did not have an appreciation for what grace really was at that point. And I learned quickly, there were elders, pastors, people I met and talked with pretty quickly on. When I get there, I was like, wow, this is a gift, and really just like it, because it was always, be work. I hope I'm good enough kind of thing, and missing the gift part of it. So the heart part was real, but I wasn't looking at it still the right way. And I had some people that just really helped me there. And, right on the heels of that, to your point about infant baptism, Baptist church, it was, hey, we, come to your own decision later on in life. And then there's merit to that. But quickly you got to understand is like, hey, what is the process? Why do we baptize infants? And then it's like, no, we're taking on a responsibility as parents and the church to support this child in their development. And then eventually you pull in the piece of confirmation at the equivalent age, if you want to call it that, of where you are in the Baptist upbringing. That's like, hey, okay, yes, I understand now what this all means, and I own this now. And, it took me, that was something I had to learn, and people taught me early on, and that ultimately led to pretty quickly, both my daughters being baptized, and Stacy too,
Awesome.
at that point. So, but people, elders who knew pretty early on, I consider friends, some that have moved on, educated me. Yeah. And it was like, oh, wow, it was so just like kind of like the uplifting of the service that we would attend. It was so awesome to hear, the gift part of that. And that has always resonated with me.
I know for me, it is that gift of grace that allows me even to be okay that I might be wrong. Even on some pretty big theological differences where my friends and colleagues, we can really disagree on. And it's that gift of grace that tells me, hey, if I'm wrong, well, I'm going to be okay. I really don't think, God's going to kick me out because I had the wrong understanding here. And if really my heart needs to be changed so much so, again, I believe in that ongoing grace that it'll get changed. God won't leave me in this awful, wretched state of misunderstanding, right? That even there, if I am really, really wrong about this, God will let me know with grace and kindness. God doesn't need to scare me into submission, but God will do that turning in my heart, right? And I know that, again, something I really mourned with disaffiliation is losing that kind of forced connection with my brothers and sisters who I know I disagree with theologically and yet could grow alongside, could still work together, could push me to continue to clarify my convictions, to wrestle with new pieces of scripture or in a different way or places I see that in reality. I really mourn that. And I also am grateful for those that we can stay friends. I remember in the middle of the great disaffiliation and every church is voting and it's super hard and scary and sad. And someone found out that me and another friend who was at a church that was disaffiliating are still friends. And her whole team were like, what? You still talk to her? And she was like, yeah, she's one of my best friends. I've known since I met her, we disagreed on this. Like, this isn't surprising or shocking or relationship shattering. Because again, we believe in one, this grace of God that's big enough, and two, this love and connection that we have.
And I think the common ground to all of that, in my opinion, is we all love Jesus. Amen. I mean, we all love Jesus, and we can all have our own thoughts and opinions on how it should be and what have you. But at the end of the day, we all love Jesus, and that's what keeps me from even trying to argue or whatever. There was a time at the beginning of the disaffiliation, and kind of had a disagreement with probably one of my best friends, and then I just agreed to we just agreed to disagree and what have you, and but I know he loves Jesus every bit as much as I do, and at the end of the day, that to me that's all that's important. I don't care where you worship. I don't even care if you don't, because that's up to you. But I'm gonna love Jesus, and most all of my friends do, and the ones that don't, hopefully they can find him someday, some way. It doesn't have to be about the stuff. It's not about the stuff. We have a tendency to make it about the stuff, and it just ain't.
Yeah. Where do you see Jesus entertaining and or moving toward those he disagreed with versus maybe this pull away that we as humanity tend to choose?
Jesus, just straight from scriptures, he engaged all, and he engaged those that the cultural norms at the time would say you don't. I mean, engaging the woman at the well, at Jacob's well in Samaria. When you look at a biblical map, if you're going to Jerusalem from Galilee, Samaria sits right there in the middle, and they would take a very long way around because they didn't want to associate versus the straight shot that would get you right there. And, Jesus knows, like, he grabbed his disciples and we're going in there. And he used that opportunity to really start talking about, living water and eternal life for the first time. And she was having a hard time. It's like, we're not supposed to be talking, we're not supposed to be talking, and he's like, no, but we are, and it was setting an example for the disciples at the time. But, he always was uplifting about the poor. However you treat the least of us, you treat me. Washing his disciples, feet right before the Last Supper, having dinner with tax collectors. I mean, he lived it. And it's that love and that giving, to y'all's good points, is that's the center point of all his teachings, of what he was. If we just can center on that, try to live that, then we can work out the other stuff.
Yeah.
What he said. Yeah, you two have forgotten more about the Bible than I know, or probably ever will know. But I'm pretty sure that I remember he wasn't searching out the ones that were just all the good ones. He was looking for those others and what have you. So it's all about that to me. So,
Well, I'm even mesmerized how often he goes toward, and I love the word entertains, the very ones who are against him. He could have just hidden out. He could have stayed away. And you see that even the disciples of like, don't go there. They're going to kill you. He's like, I'm not worried about that. That's not going to, faze me. I have work to do. I have people to love. I have people to heal and to teach and to draw near. And that anytime a Pharisee or a scribe or a scholar or a student or a lawyer, whatever word has been, translated to, had a question or a pushback, he didn't say, no, you're not going to ask me a hard question. No, I'm not going to do this with you. He entertained, and often would say, what do you think? Even still humanizing this person who is in opposition, humanizing this one who is trying to catch him in a trap, humanizing this even person who represents a whole sect of people who know the right way. Mm-hmm. That instead he just welcomes and said, let's talk about it. Maybe there's something to learn here. Maybe there's a place that we can grow. And I know for me, and, especially I think about work situations, when someone's difficult, I want to walk away. I want to tune that person out. I want to disengage. And yet when I've listened to that stirring and gone forward and maybe invited to coffee or lunch or listened to their long story the next time they share it, I can try to humanize this person. Let's find our common ground instead of maybe the places that we disagree.
I suspect that there's a lot of, or maybe not a lot. I suspect that there's a considerable amount of commonality between two people, even though at the surface it may not seem that way. Again, as I get older, I happen to be seeing that more and more. As a kid and an ignorant moron, I didn't see this, but I think my eyes and ears have opened up quite a bit, probably even lately. And I think I've got a lot of that from Debbie. I mean, she's a way better listener than me, even to this day. But I have really worked hard at listening more than I talk, and that's been difficult for me because I've had a job where I had to talk all the time and to different kind of people, and whatever. And I enjoy visiting, talking to people, but what it did was kept me from being as good a listener as I needed to be. So probably still working on that. Still work in progress.
Yeah. How else might we, the church, model how Jesus reacted to disagreement? How might we move near and invite closer those we disagree with?
I think, like I said, Jesus at the center, as we talked about. Be loving, have a giving heart. I've always tried to start with like everybody's a child of God, and just start from that point. It's like, how do we kind of meet people where they are? But I think it's important to to try to go out there and meet folks where they are. And one of the things, a couple of things I picked up from just a career, that I had to work on. One of my own skills was giving people the benefit of the doubt and not prejudging. That can be a difficult thing to do, but I learned it just from experience of, you second guessing, why did somebody else do something and why did they make that decision? And then you learn later, well, if I was in that chair and I had the exact same information that I had at that time, that, okay, I may have done something differently, but I get where you're coming from. And the same thing even on the theological side. It was like, hey, it's like we may be in two different places, but I get where you're coming from. What can we do together? So I think, certainly taking care of our own flock is like, how do we continue to grow ourselves and our walls, but also how do we go out there and really be real in the community? Even if we disagree, theologically on some things, like I'm sure we can all get on board with going out there and helping people, working on things together and growing bonds and friendships that way. And you mentioned, the church side is like, an opportunity of a couple of things I'm curious about. One is, is there more we could do with other churches? There's lots of churches in the Pearland area and really everywhere. There's some things we do, within our own congregation, but it's like just churches down the street. Is there more outreach we could do to them? It's like, let's muster our resources together and do something in the community. I don't know the easy way to do that. It just feels like that's an opportunity. Yeah. And
that's a blank slate right there, because there's all kinds of stuff that can be done out
45,000 churches in Pearland. So
exactly. I keep going, and I guess because it's become such an important part of my life, is as we talk about stuff, how it relates to me when I'm in prison. I'm not living there when I go in there, but when I get to visit with the inmates, and first of all, they're just wanting to, and they will open up to you, and not necessarily talking about their past. We're not supposed to hear that kind of stuff, but they'll, on many occasions, hey James, can I talk to you about something? I said, well, it depends on what it is. You can't tell me what you're here for, because if you're going to do that, you need to talk to a chaplain, and I'm not even remotely close to that. But they always start talking about their family and their lack thereof, and their background and what have you. And the commonality to that is that everyone that I've had those one-on-ones with, all come from broken homes. And so they turn to somebody that's supposed to, like them, and they're just using them. But you talk about learning. I mean, every time I come back from the prison, Debbie asks me she always asks me, like, how was it? And my answer is always the same. And it's just as factual as it can be. I get more out of it than I give. I mean, I just do. I learn from these guys. They have no freedom in there. They get some time from time to time, but their attitudes are so good. And I'm fortunate that I go to a faith-based prison, so they're different. There's nobody there on death row. There was one that was on death row, and I asked him one time. I says, I thought the only way you get off of death row is if you're dead. And he just started laughing. He says, no, he pointed up. He said, it was all God. He said, I should have been there. I should have been executed. But this happened, and then this happened, and he's a pastor now. He is a pastor out in rural Texas. But I learn from these people, and they're learning from me. They just see how, and I don't pull punches with them. I tell them when they get out, it's not a cakewalk out in the free world. You're all wanting to get there, and you're going to get there, but there's a whole lot more out there that you can get in trouble with than there is in here. Believe me. So, I'm probably sidetracking on what your question was,
good.
But it's
what I heard you say was, you learn because you're willing to listen, and I think that's what I would say too. Is, what can the church do? Is be willing to listen, be willing to lean in, even if someone's getting emotional or it's a hot, big area of disagreement for you theologically. Be willing to ask, like, so what do you believe and why? And sometimes people don't really know the answer to that question. And then when you ask them, they realize that, and it kind of can make them a little maybe embarrassed or more emotional. But, if they're really convicted, then a authentic question of, well, tell me more. Like, and also to be comfortable enough in your own faith of like, I'm pretty strong in what I believe about this, but tell me more. Not because you're going to change my mind, but because I care about you as a person. And obviously this is important to you. And what that might be like if just more Christians, more of the body of Christ behaved like Christ and asked that question, so tell me more.
We have to be better if we're not good enough yet, but we have to be better at not trying to convince people our way, my way. My way is the only way. That is the wrong road to travel. What you just said, we have to listen, and we have to, well, what do you think about it? It doesn't mean that I'm going to agree, but we need to hear what other people are about that. If somebody asks me where I am in my faith journey, or which is going to go on until I don't breathe anymore, it's in my opinion, it starts out about faith because I do believe Jesus is real, and then I also I think because of that faith, I see it happen, and I hear, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? If that's not God, how is it not? I mean, it's, but you have to have, I think you have to want to have that faith and want to believe that. And that's what I think opens up your eyes and ears to seeing it happen. Yeah. I'm convinced that it happens.
For sure. If you're willing to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe God is constantly in the pursuit of wooing our hearts. Just are we willing to see it and receive it?
Yeah.
And then once you do, you can't stop.
No.
It's everywhere. Yeah. So what hope would you offer to those who are uncomfortable with disagreement, especially in the realm of theology or what they believe? What's one step they could take starting today?
One step, well, we've said it a few times, and I'll say it again, keep Jesus number one, but focus on the common ground and stay open. I mean, y'all were just alluding to this, but our spiritual journey ourselves is a lifelong intentional, or needs to be intentional process. I don't see things the same at 55 as I did at 45 or 35, and God willing, 65 or 75, our experiences and traditions, things we learn, and people we've built relationships with matter. So focus on the common ground, and I just think find the opportunities to go work on something together to help people. I'm just going to say help, or wherever the need is, work on something together and grow the relationship, and be intentional. Just, James and I alluded, we try to be intentional about our lunches. We don't always nail it, but be intentional about keeping the friendships. I'm always talking to, my daughters and say, look, you can never have enough friends. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way, people move off and all that. And it's like, you have to be intentional about it. And these types of relationships where we're trying to grow friendships and face stories together, we have to be intentional about it and be open, but focus on Jesus, focus on the common ground, and, find opportunities to get to work in his name and see what happens.
What you just said, you have to be open. I mean, if you're going to have those conversations, you have to be open. You can't be, oh God, where do you get that? Or the same thing would happen if I might be talking. That guy's crazy. So, you have to be open, and you have to not, you need to not have the hammer of the gun pull back. You just have, keep it in your pocket and just have a conversation. Yeah. Gee, you might even learn something. What a novel concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just have to agree. Don't be thinking you have to win this theological argument. You have to have your facts and your stats. Just love.
Yeah.
Love this person enough, even if that's what they're bringing. Wow, that's intriguing. Wow, I didn't know that. You are really smart, and not in a condescending way of just to receive what they are offering with love and grace. And then, pray, God, help me see this person as a human and not just a list of things I disagree with.
The Kairos motto is listen, love, love. Yeah. It's pretty simple.
Says it.
Yeah.
But powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for being willing to have maybe an uncomfortable and tough conversation today. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the places that you've wrestled with disagreement, but then also where you've been able to see friendship beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Really,
of course. And thank you for tuning in. I hope that you will subscribe, share this episode if you have enjoyed it. Maybe send it to a friend, even one with which you disagree. Those kinds of things really do help our podcast reach those who are not in our community, so they might also welcome these conversations on RealTalk. I also want to invite you into the conversation. You can send your questions, comments, feedback to my email, theac@fumcpearland.org, and we'll try to address those here in the podcast studio as well as directly. And so thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Real Talk Podcast is produced by First United Methodist Church Pearland in collaboration with Pearland Podcast Studios, recorded here in Pearland, Texas. We invite you to check out our website at fumcpearland.org to check out additional events and opportunities for you to engage in real talk about faith and relationships.